Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of a brand new podcast series titled Secret Sauce, powered by Khaleej Times. This is your host Roy, and I'll help you uncover the unknown and untold journeys of many of the young tech entrepreneurs in the UAE who came to the show pursuing the great UAE dream and made it big by the sheer dint of their ideas and conviction. In uncovering those journeys, I have an absolute pleasure of welcoming my guest on the show, Zaid Kidwai. Zaid is the co-founder and the CEO of STRABL, MENA's first escrow-backed Fintech startup venture and a unicorn in its own right. He applies on the model of try now and buy later, and that has really taken off like this other. So in this age of unicorn, really, which is not mythical anymore, and with his so-called cousins of Soonicorns and the minicorns to follow, he has, amongst the cohorts of minicorns thereof, found their own niche in terms of delivering what they started out to be. Right, Zaid, as I see, you've been galloping quite fast in terms of your journey. So what made you straddle the STRABL horse, and what's been your derby like so far?
It's been, it's war that we're at, right? And fighting mini battles all along the way. It's not an overnight thing. It's been a long time in the making. A lot of learning, a lot of falling, a lot of screw-ups, which got us to where we are today. And there's more to come. There's more screw-ups to happen. So to help us rise higher.
Very true, Zaid. And I think that also plays to these stats that out of every 10 startups, probably one or two really succeed. So more than the success graph is a lot of learning curve that kind of becomes the building blocks or the Lego pieces, really, the puzzle.
In the ecosystem, having failures, I've had failures of my own, right? I've had one failed startup in the past. This is now my third startup. We obviously will learn from our own mistakes and our own mess-ups, but also from the ones that are around, the 9 that have failed. There is a lot to learn. And honestly, in the world of startups, if you're not learning, if you're not growing, you're a dinosaur, and you've got to have grit. You've got to have a lot of grit.
True. And, from what comes out of it and what we've seen, the STRABL has been a dish well served, really, with all the ingredients in place, well inspired. The cuisine is global and a fusionistic approach that really appeals to the audience at large. So what has been the secret sauce, really, in terms of making?
Research on our markets, the markets that we're targeting. As I told you that I'm on to my third startup now. Along the way, when I look back, I see that everything that I was doing in the past was leading me up to this, right? It was giving me the kind of information, the feedback, the research data that, okay, you know what, there is this requirement, there is this gap in the market, right? And it needs to be filled up soon. Of course, it was a bit of a surprise, I would say, when I started to work on this idea with my co-founder. I found out that we're the only ones in the region doing this, and I didn't quite understand why, because this is such a basic thing,
right? And
the thing that you mentioned about ingredients, the stuff that I mentioned earlier, these are the ingredients that helped us cook this dish, right? We were able to put together a lot of ideas. We were able to put together a lot of feedback, and then we said that, okay, this gap seems a sensible thing to approach, and that's what we did. I mean, look, beyond a certain point, there's not much that you can. There's no more guidance. There's nothing more, right? You just gotta go out and do it. It works. If not, you try and make it work for as long as you can.
Absolutely. And as they say, you have only failed if you failed to try. So, Yes, the latent segment was there, and sometimes we miss the obvious from trying the absolutely complicated ones. And I think that's where your niche comes in from. Having said that, the whole ecosystem for startups has been evolving and will evolve further in the days to come. Let me throw in some stats. The UAE digital economy is pegged at roughly $500 billion by 2030, out of which, let's say, 26% will go on to Fintech, 25% on the retailing, and the rest 49% will be covered up by, let's say, a health tech or edutech and so on and so forth. Add to that a growing consumer retail market of roughly $2 trillion USD. How do you see this ecosystem evolving further? What could be the future trends? What is your take in terms of DNA overall? What's to happen?
I think obviously there is a lot more innovation that is to happen. I mean, it's a non-stop process, right? There is no saying that, okay, I or anybody else could predict that, okay, you know what, in the next coming months or next coming years, let's say AI is going to take off, or some sort of science-based startups that like the whole the fake meat thing. Everything has its time. Everything that we're doing today was attempted before as well. So honestly, there is no saying what the future is going to look like. Everyone's trying. We are part of the whole bandwagon as well. There will be some emerging ones. Some market may just not be ready for it.
Rightly said, and probably just fair to say that retro in the making and in the working as well.
Correct.
What was attempted earlier is coming back and a new avatar, so to speak, making it count.
Yeah, it's just all wrapped up differently now.
Wonderful. On the same lines though, any 3 quirky ideas or business concepts that you can think of which would probably make it big as a Soonicorn in the days to come?
Quirky ideas. We're one, right? I mean, this is based off some of the investors that tell us their feedback. In the MENA region, probably there are 12 unicorns, 4 of which are here in the UAE. And there are 49 odd minicorns/Soonicorns, which are in the making, and they are kind of hitting it big. And that ranges from across B2B, B2C, D2C, which is your concept though. And goes from there. See, the thing is, the reason why I struggle with answering this question is our region, I mean, it's an evolving region, right? So in an evolving region, we start out with the basics. Then we move to a little more advanced concept. And then, we can attempt or experiment with quirkier ideas, which could just make it. Like, I mean, what I'm seeing in the market is a lot of pet-related stuff, right? I'm seeing a lot of pet-related stuff. But there's got to be the numbers. Now, it could be a quirky startup, right, which services pets in some form. But then again, there's got to be enough market for that for it to be a viable proposition. So, absolutely. So given that, I still think that something like maybe in the space that is not servicing humans would possibly be one startup, and something that's helping, I guess, help with climate change. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. See, I mean, one aspect of it that comes across very abruptly and very prominently as well is, when you look at the founders, really, they are absolutely invested in the conviction of that particular concept or idea that sells. So intellectual capital, well ticked. Where it comes to is the crucial cog is the funding.
Correct.
And if you look at this particular region, there's a lot depending on where the funding comes from. More to say, because unicorns or Soonicorns in this region are not really listed in stock exchanges either here or probably globally. So which means then they turn to the next source of funding, which is your venture capitalists or private equity funds, investment banks. So how do you see this piece evolving really? Has it become easier over the years really in terms of UAE being a hub, innovation hub of incubators of the startup ecosystem?
Honestly, yes. Big changes. The GCC region alone has become so active that just a couple of days back, we were discussing, us reaching out to some VCs in the Western Hemisphere. But then over the discussion, it came out to be that, there is enough, but there's so much potential within the GCC region, within UAE, within Saudi, that technically startups don't really need to look outside for sources of funding.
Right.
And then in the past, in just recent past, where we had a couple of IPOs happen for all these private companies. One of the biggest one of those was the G24
Correct.
IPO that happened. Security that was within 3 years. Those guys IPO'd. That company that sort of literally IPO'd within 3 years, which is a huge boost of confidence, or rather one of confidence for regional startups, saying that, okay, you know what, within our own region, things have evolved so much that we could literally just aim for an IPO on the stock exchanges here.
Very true. Probably my next question is, do you see a UAE version of a Shark Tank? Probably.
There have been many attempted and many failed. But I think, yes, to have something like Shark Tank, right, to host something like Shark Tank, all you got to do is have enough of a balance, enough funds to run through the show, right? What happens is that usually these concepts have been tried all over the world, right? And some of them, those shows never really made it to what they could be, only because they ran out of funding, right? But the number of active investors coming into the market, I think now we could possibly have a full-fledged Shark Tank-like show in the region.
Lovely. That will be great. So probably if you had to flip the hat really and wear the hat of a Shark Tank judge or a jury, what would be that one criteria for you to judge upcoming entrepreneurs?
So the one word that I mentioned, grit. I'm going to look at really how much can they sustain, right? Like, you throw at them whatever you've got, and let them maintain their composure, and still keep giving you sensible responses. You know, that is the one quality that I would look for, because too many, and you know, this is a sad reality of the startup ecosystem, is that there are too many founders who think that they've got it, they've cracked it, right? And they get this certain level of fake, I would say, confidence or fake ego sort of a thing, which unfortunately plays against them. And what ends up happening is that they just keep giving you they give you very, very negative responses. That is what usually ends up these founders usually end up doing. You question them a little more on the numbers, on the market, and then how they reach this. What's the business model like? What is their go-to-market strategy? They could literally be blank on most, but they would still act as if, they're the Series B guys.
True, I think there's much to be had in terms of the quality and the prudence.
Correct.
Jurors themselves. Okay, coming back to the business landscape, what makes certain startups click and most of them don't, is also to align with the changing realities of the world with regard to climate change, with regard to, let's say, for example, yours. Yours is a D2C innovative concept that aligns well with the UAE's vision of 2050, which is your zero
digital economy.
Absolutely. And so on and so forth. So going forward, do you also see a trend wherein these startups will have to be aligned better with the ESG goals really overall, which is giving back to the community, giving back to the climate change, working with across?
I think in some way or the other, one of the core things that shape this trend is, what is the funding climate like, right? If there is an abundance of funds in the market, then people try many things. People try many ideas, because you could reach up to a certain point enough to understand that is there a fit? Is there a product market fit? If the funding climate is too cold, then unfortunately you will not be able to see a lot of issues being tackled. So it really just comes down to that. But I think startups generally try to solve these problems, these underlying problems.
They do, because there's a convergence of AI, tech, and so on and so forth. So how do you see that quadrant also evolving? Let's say on a rating scale of 1 to 5, 5 being highest, how do you see the impact of, let's say, AI, metaverse, IoT really converging together in terms of future of work?
It's funny when you say metaverse, because recently Facebook just scrapped their metaverse.
It's a journey, all right.
Yeah. So we were discussing this in the office the other day, that what's going to happen to all those metaverse startups that were literally, modeled after the whole Facebook thing. But I think this is where grit comes into play, and this is where it comes down to how sharp the founders are and how well they'd be able to pivot. You don't have to pivot from the idea itself, but how are you going to present it in a different way that it's, that it works with the different stakeholders in the market? But to answer, your question about, I think there's going to be huge impact of all these things like AI and metaverse style startups, because, for example, we ourselves we have a certain business model, right? We are going to the market in a certain way, but then again, we're also having conversation with these metaverse style startups as to how we could work with them as well. So you see, when we're changing, a lot of the others are also going to be changing. I mean, in real estate itself, right? The whole metaverse thing opened up this virtual viewings, right? So a lot of these prop tech startups started to adopt that in some way. So you see, this is how it's really evolving the startup landscape in the region. Everybody who's got an existing one also is somehow trying to fit in something. I mean, AI is an overused, what's the word? Yeah. Hyped. It's really, everyone's, whether they're doing it or they're not doing it, everyone's just using it. All because it somehow just ties in with the with what the ecosystem expects of you.
On the lighter side, though, if there was one idol or one celebrity, probably whom you had the opportunity to have a brunch with, what would be that one question for you, and who would that be?
Honestly, the one celebrity who has been, who I could sort of not relate to, but would like to meet, and especially because I'm in the startup world, would be Ashton Kutcher. Right? This guy has, he's, the way he started approaching the startups and started funding those things like Airbnb. I think he was with Neighborhood as well. But he's been behind quite a few. How, as a celeb, he was able to, like, what did he see in these guys? Right? Why did he invest with them? What was the reason? Like, because I don't think he did that to make money.
Very true. Probably a sheer need to help people.
Right, exactly. So what was it that really drove him to it? Because why that's important to understand is, we could possibly be, maybe we need to change the language, the way we pitch, right? The way we market ourselves. Maybe that is an important thing, because if you could convert somebody who is not from the industry into a very active investor in the industry, then you could really get a lot of the market, a lot of the people, a lot of the stakeholders in the ecosystem to get attracted to you.
Interesting. Okay, so as a food for thought, though, because secret sauce, really. So what would be your advice to budding entrepreneurs who are probably looking at STRABL and saying, wow, let me try and do something similar lines?
You're going to have to really believe in your idea. You're going to have to really believe in it. And you're going to have to also be the most flexible person that anybody has ever come across. Because you're going to have to change. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to day in, day out, re-strategize. You're going to have to move away from your idea, from your core principles as well, right? There's going to be so much happening. So while you still keep that essence of your idea, right? So my, honestly, 2 cents to them would be that really believe in your idea and find ways to make it work. Don't get stuck. Don't get too stuck up with what you know already. Keep evolving. Right. Otherwise, like as I said, you're going to be a dinosaur.
So keep moving, stay hungry, absorb like a sponge.
No, stay hungry. Because there is a very famous thing we use is stay hungry, stay foolish. No, don't be hungry.
Don't be foolish.
No, keep yourself fed. Be fed all the time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Zaid, for your time.
Thank you.
Very interesting intakes. And,
of course.
Wish you well.
I appreciate you for this and for doing this. And yeah, good luck with.
Yeah, so this is Roy signing off from Secret Sauce. I hope you liked the episode. Keep watching the space for more episodes to come by.